When we hear the term Roaring Twenties, the mind often forms a single shiny image: lights, parties, jazz, and people dancing without tension. But that was only what the camera could capture. The real story was unfolding behind the stage. This glamour was actually a mask, hiding a deep psychological and social upheaval. The roar of the 1920s was not the sound of music in a club. It was the sound of restlessness inside people. People were broken from within, and silence was no longer possible for them. That is why they laughed, danced, and shouted. The noise was in reality a response to silent pain. Before the 1920s, life moved in a fixed rhythm: work in the morning, home in the evening, and silence at night. But in the 1920s, cities expanded, machines became faster, and time itself seemed to accelerate. Cars, trains, and elevators made people feel that stopping was no longer possible. Life was no longer moving, life had become a race. When life speeds up, thinking speeds up as well. People stop reflecting deeply and start making instant decisions. Taking risks begins to feel normal. Patience and restraint start to seem outdated. In the 1920s, people turned speed into a lifestyle for the first time. World War I did not break people only physically, it broke them mentally. During the war, suppressing emotions was part of survival. Showing fear, weakness, or vulnerability was not allowed. But after the war, all those suppressed emotions exploded at once. The fun of the 1920s was actually the release of buried trauma. The people who were laughing were in truth trying to escape from memories, from pain, and from the fear of death. On dance floors, it was not just music playing, it was relief. Alcohol was not just intoxication, it was a way to forget. This was not happiness, it was emotional survival. In the 1920s, society collectively said for the first time, enough is enough. Victorian morals that taught restraint and control began to feel outdated. People started asking, why shouldn't we live? Following rules began to be seen as weakness. This rebellion was not silent, it was public and loud. Women, once confined to silence and boundaries, began to appear in public life. Short dresses were not just fashion, they were a statement. Dancing and smoking in public meant we are free too. To society, this felt extremely loud, but in reality, it was the roar of a long-suppressed female voice. The younger generation began questioning their parents' rules. They rejected traditional careers and lifestyles. Music, fashion, and nightlife became their identity. They wanted to live in the present, not in the future. This too was a powerful roar of the Roaring Twenties. In the 1920s, money became very easy to access. The stock market was rising and everyone wanted to become an investor. People invested without knowledge. Profit turned into an addiction. This growth was not healthy, it was dangerous. When money speaks louder, reason speaks less. In the 1920s, greed was mistaken for confidence. People believed the boom would never end. Warning signs were ignored. This was a roar, but the roar before a collapse. Before the 1920s, silence was considered a virtue. Speaking less, showing less, and controlling oneself was seen as respectable. But in the 1920s, expression killed silence. People began to speak, to show themselves, and to live openly. Silence was buried along with the old world. A whisper represents control. A scream represents loss of control. In the 1920s, the world let go of control. People took ownership of their lives. That is why the world was not whispering, it was screaming. The roar of the 1920s was not about music, It was a roar of attitude, a roar of freedom from fear, a roar of rebellion against control. That is why the Roaring Twenties were not a party, they were a collective explosion.